Right now, the market is pricing Reinsurance at 0.7 times sales, a valuation that usually indicates one of two things: imminent bankruptcy or a massive mispricing. Wall Street treats it as a distressed asset with no future. But I have analyzed the 10 case and the raw underwriting data, and the reality is completely different. Root just delivered 27% revenue growth with a 59% cross-loss ratio, a metric that outperforms industry leaders like Progressive and Allstate. This is a company priced for insolvency that is actively pivoting to profitability. Today, I'm going to walk you through the investment thesis for a potential 10-bagger. This isn't just a speculation, it is a calculation based on valuation mean reversion, operating leverage, and scale. But first, let's understand what the company does. Root is basically an auto insurance company which determines your rates based primarily on your driving behavior, rather than traditional demographic factors. When you download the Root app, you can either start with an instant quote based on basic information or choose to complete a test drive period first. During the test drive, the app tracks driving habits such as braking, speed, turns, and phone usage using smartphone sensors. Afterward, Root analyzes this data to generate a personalized code that reflects real driving performance. Okay, now let's break down the math. First, let's look at the re-rating trade. To understand how cheap Root is, we have to look at its peers. Progressive is the gold standard. It's growing revenue at roughly 15% and trades at 1.5 times sales. Then you have Lemonade. The market treats them like a tech darling. They're growing fast, sure, but they trade at a massive 10.5 times sales. And then there's Root. Root is growing faster than Progressive at 27%, but trades at just 0.7 times sales. The disparity is the first engine of returns. The market is pricing Root like it's going out of business while pricing Lemonade like it's the next Google. If Root simply proves it is a viable business over the next 2 quarters, it does not even need to hit Lemonade's crazy valuation. If it just re-rates to 1.5 times, matching Progressive, that is a 200% return purely on multiple expansion. That right there is a deep value component of the trade, buying $1 for 50 cents. Now let's talk about the second engine for the 10-bagger, revenue growth. To keep growing at 27% in a commoditized market, you don't need a fancy brand or Geico. You need 2 things: to be the cheapest and to be good enough in service. Let's be honest, 99% of people hate buying insurance. It's a grudge purchase. Nobody wakes up excited to pay the premium. They want the piece of paper that makes them legal to drive, and they want it for the lowest possible dollar amount. So the question is, can Root win on price? The data says yes. I pulled the 2026 premiums from the Zebra, and the gap is undeniable. For the safe drivers, Root is consistently $300 to $500 cheaper. In this economy, that is the difference between making rent or not. That is a massive moat. The reason Root can price so much lower than its competitors is because traditional carriers rely on demographics: credit score, occupation, and marital status. But Root relies on telematics. Root determines your rates based primarily on your driving behavior rather than traditional demographic factors. When you download the Root app, you do a test drive for a few weeks. The sensor in your phone tracks everything: braking, speed, turns, and crucially, phone usage. After the test drive, Root analyzes this data. So if you're able to avoid distracted driving, brake smoothly, and stay under the speed limit, they offer you a personalized rate. Yes, it takes a few weeks to get the quote, but as long as you can avoid a lapse in coverage, the savings are massive. Now, if you research consumer sentiment, you'll find a fascinating dichotomy. On the NAIC Complaint Index, Root scores a 1.93, nearly double the industry average, which means Root is getting 1.93 times more complaints than the market average. This is not a failure, it is a feature of their risk selection strategy. Legacy carriers use human agents to fight to keep every customer. Root, on the other hand, uses an algorithm. If a user's driving behavior deteriorates, Root aggressively raises rates or cancels the policy. While this generates complaints, it acts as a firewall for the balance sheet. They are prioritizing loss ratio integrity over volume. But here's the nuance that most analysts miss. Go look at the Better Business Bureau. Root maintains an A+ rating, but look closer. Root is actively replying to almost every single complaint. They are engaging, explaining, and trying to solve the issue. Now compare that to Geico or Progressive. On many platforms, they are silent. They have 30 million customers, so they don't have to care about one angry review. And the same cannot be said about Root. They are young, they are hungry, and they know they have to earn every inch of market share. To me, that responsiveness is a huge leading indicator. They aren't just building an algorithm, they are grinding to build a brand. But you might have a question, if Root is pricing their policies lower than others, don't they have a risk of going broke? Here is what is going to blow your mind. What you're looking at is the gross loss ratio. In plain English, this metric asks for every $100 the company collects in premiums, how much do they pay out in car crashes? Geico collects $100 and pays out roughly $75, which means they are keeping $25. Progressive collects $100 and pays out $65, keeping $35 for themselves. Root collects $100 and pays out only $59, which means they keep $41. Root is charging the customer less, but they are keeping more of every dollar. Now, how's that mathematically possible? It comes back to the risk pool. When you pay $2,000 to Geico, you aren't just paying for your own risk. You are subsidizing the bad driver who texts at 90 miles per hour. Geico charges you extra to cover him. But Root is not having all of that, so they kicked that guy out. Because Root's pool is made up of safe drivers, they have fewer accidents. Fewer accidents means fewer payouts. That is how they can offer the lowest price on the market while running the most efficient underwriting book in the industry. They aren't going broke by being cheap, they are winning by being selective. So if Root is keeping $41 of every $100, why aren't they posting massive profits yet? It is because of one temporary problem, which is the reinsurance tax. Right now, Root is still considered a small insurer to protect themselves from a catastrophic event like a massive hurricane wiping out their cash reserves. They use quota share reinsurance. Essentially, they give away a chunk of the premium and their profit to massive reinsurers like Munich Re in exchange for safety. Progressive does not have to do this. They are huge. They have a fortress balance sheet, so they keep 100% of the risk and 100% of the profit. As Root is getting bigger, it is actively reducing their reinsurance. When they fully close the gap between their gross loss ratio and their net loss ratio, they essentially stop paying that tax. Now let's do the math. Closing that spread on their book of business adds $120 to $150 million directly to the bottom line. They don't need to sell a single extra policy to get this money. They don't even need to raise prices. They just need to get big enough to stop sharing the lunch. That is pure 100% margin expansion that is coming down the pipe. So now we know they have the cheapest price and the lowest loss ratio. The last piece of the 10-bagger puzzle is volume. To turn a $70 stock into $700, Root needs to grow revenue from $1.6 billion to $5 billion. Scaling that fast requires efficient distribution. Here are the 5 engines driving that growth. First is Carvana. Root is integrated directly into Carvana's point-of-sale API. You buy the car, you click a button, you are insured. Carvana is currently growing unit sales at 44%. This is free growth. As long as Carvana sells cars, Root sells policies. They are drafting off Carvana's success without spending a dime on ads. Second is Hyundai. Root has partnered with them to offer insurance at the dealership. You might ask, why doesn't Geico do this? Because Geico runs on mainframes from the 1980s. They can't just plug into a modern API. Root calls itself a tech company, and this is where it shows. They are the first ones to integrate seamlessly with OEMs, that is structural moat. Third on the list are independent agents. For years, Root tried to kill agents, but now they're hiring them. They have tripled their business in this channel, but they have still only tapped 10% of the agent pool. Turning on the other 90% is low-hanging fruit. It's massive volume that is just waiting to be activated. Fourth, look at the map. Root is currently live in only 35 states. They are missing massive markets like New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. These are high premium, dense population states. When they eventually turn these markets on, it triggers an instant step change in total addressable market. Fifth and the final one is new products. They are already expanding into renters insurance. Once they prove they can cross-sell, the natural next step are property and commercial. Remember, a customer with 2 policies is far less likely to leave than a customer with 1. This increases the lifetime value of every user. When you combine 44% growth from Carvana, 90% untapped agents, and 3 major states left to unlock, getting to $5 billion isn't a fantasy, it's a roadmap. Now let's talk a bit about operating leverage. Remember, Root calls itself a technology company. That isn't just marketing, it is a cost structure. Legacy carriers like State Farm are heavy. To double their revenue, they need to hire thousands of new employees and open hundreds of new offices. Their costs grow with their revenue. In this context, Root is lean. Their fixed costs are code. So to double their revenue from 2 to 4 billion, they don't need to double their engineering team. They just need more server space. Their fixed costs stay relatively flat while the revenue explodes. Currently, Geico is the efficiency king with a 12% expense ratio because of their massive scale and because they don't use agents. Root is currently higher, 29%, because they are small, but as Root scales, the number drops. When you combine Root's 59% loss ratio with the tech scale expense ratio, you get the highest profit margin in the history of the industry. This creates a data flywheel. More customers lead to more data, which leads to better algorithms, which leads to lower loss ratio, which leads to lower prices, and eventually even more customers. And currently, nobody else has this loop. Now to conclude this, I want to leave you with the raw math. We just showed you the growth engines: Carvana, which is growing 44%, Hyundai's agents business, which has grown 3 times, and 90% of market is still untapped, and state expansion in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. When you combine those engines, maintaining their current 27% growth rate isn't a fantasy, it's the baseline. In 5 years, we should have a company with $5.2 billion in revenue. Now, what is it worth? Remember, Lemonade trades at 10 times sales. Progressive trades at 1.5 times to 2 times sales. Let's be conservative. Let's ignore the tech premium. Let's just give Root a standard 2 times multiple for being a high growth insurer. 5.2 billion revenue multiplied by 2 times multiple gives us a 10.4 billion valuation. Right now, Root is worth roughly 1.1 billion. That is a 9.5 times to 10 times return, the asymmetric bet. I'm not saying it will definitely be a 10-bagger. Markets are messy, but looking at the numbers, I honestly cannot see a scenario where this does not at least do a 4 times or 5 times from here. Unless, of course, there is a catastrophic event, a mega hurricane, or a total market collapse. But let's be real, if that happens, the value of our root shares will be the least of our problems. For me, the upside is mathematical, whereas the downside is capped. That is the definition of an asymmetric bet. Let me know what you think about root in the comment section below, and please support me by hitting that like and subscribe button.